We continue our coverage of Severe Weather Preparedness Week, and today we're joined by Ron Morales, Warning Coordination Meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Charleston. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
So you're the perfect person to talk about this subject. We're hoping that everyone paid attention to yesterday's tornado drill, but let's talk about tornadoes for a moment. How common are they in the Lowcountry and throughout South Carolina?
Well, they're actually pretty common. We don't get a lot of very strong ones, but if you remember last April of 2000, we had a pretty significant tornado outbreak that actually produced the Lowcountry's first EF4. So over 170 mile per hour maximum winds with that tornado. And unfortunately, we had 5 deaths with that particular tornado. So they are relatively common. They're not always very strong, like usually EF0 to maybe EF1, which would range anywhere from, say, 65 miles per hour to maybe about 110 miles per hour, but we do get them.
What kind of damage are we talking about with some of those lower severity type tornadoes?
Well, thankfully, the lower ones, so the EF0, certainly pretty minimal damage if you live in a well-built structure, kind of a typical single family home. You're probably going to have very minor type damage, maybe some loss of roof shingles or maybe some siding from your home, that kind of thing. And of course, anything that's outside would be blowing around. As you get up into EF1, a little bit more significant damage, still very survivable, but certainly some maybe minor roof damage, could be broken windows, certainly with any one of those because of the flying debris that could be coming through. But unfortunately, if you live in a mobile home or structure similar to that, they don't stand up quite as well. In fact, you could be in danger even in a high-end EF0 of that mobile home rolling and actually becoming rolling into the wind. And then if you're inside of that, you could be rolling around and objects could be falling on you. So quite dangerous. As you get into EF1, a mobile home is going to be very significantly damaged.
It's very scary. Are we also talking about downed trees, things like that?
Yeah, so I focused on the structural stuff there, like homes and buildings, but absolutely, downed trees are probably the most likely thing that are going to be impacted by the tornadoes around here, since we have so many trees. And of course, the wires or the power lines that are in the way of those trees are going to be taken down and therefore impacting electrical service across the area.
Oh, sure. Now, the houses here in the Lowcountry and many parts of South Carolina are built for flooding, but houses in the Midwest, those are built for tornadoes. So where would be a safe place for people to take shelter in the event of a tornado here in South Carolina?
Sure. Well, actually, I'd like to cover a little bit what you just said about the structure of the homes. One good thing about here in South Carolina, especially for the homes near the coast, now I don't know where that cuts off, but particularly the immediate coastal counties, a lot of the newer homes are built with higher standards for hurricanes. So that's wind, and a tornado is wind. So the same things like tie downs on your roof and your rafters to the walls and those type of connections are very, very helpful for protecting your home. With that being said, where do you go? We don't have basements generally, so we tell people to go to the lowest floor. So if you have 2 floors in your home or building, get to that lowest floor, interior-most location, away from the outside windows, walls, doorways as possible. Now, with a lot of new homes, the open floor plans, that's difficult to do. But do the best you can to get to the interior lowest most level of that structure. Cover your head if you can with a pillow, a cushion, even a helmet if you have one.
And I'm hearing that tornado season in 2021 could be a bit more severe than it has in past years. Does that stand true for our local viewership?
Honestly, I haven't looked at the latest prediction for that. And really, I don't like people to focus too much on that type of thing, because let's say I tell you it's not going to be severe and then one hits your home and you're thinking what happened. So I think every residents around here should be prepared always. Really, starting now, we're into our severe weather season, and to be prepared for these type of storms to occur around your area.
That is excellent advice. I want to switch gears and start talking about hurricanes. We're going to do that after the break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. We've been chatting with Ron Morales, Warning Coordination Meteorologist at the National Weather Service here in Charleston. So when is the official start to hurricane season?
The official start is June 1st, and that goes till November 30th.
Okay. And when we tend to hear about hurricanes, there are two terms that are being used, watches and warnings. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so if we're talking about hurricanes, the watches are a little different than they would be for severe storms. So for hurricanes, the watch is going to come out as much as 48 hours in advance of the first tropical storm force winds or hurricane, depending on what the watch is for, whether it's for a tropical storm or a hurricane, when those winds are going to arrive in your area. The warning, a little bit less, up to 36 hours advanced lead time. So you're talking about a decent amount of time to prepare your home, to maybe board up your windows. Actually, you should be doing that even before that, and getting out, evacuating. Whereas a watch for a severe thunderstorm or a tornado, those are only going to, if they come out, they're going to give you hours of advance notice. So you're not going to be out boarding up your home and taking things in. You're just going to be prepared to take action if something were to occur later that day.
And then we put all these things together, let's say hurricanes, just severe rain, king tides. We know a lot about flooding here in the Lowcountry. So what are some of the dangers that we have here and ways of protecting ourselves?
Yeah, flooding is a huge initiative here, and one that I'm very interested in myself, given that I live right, in the area here. So we are always at a threat for rainfall flooding, but we also are at a threat for coastal flooding, which is the water coming in from the ocean with the very high tides, with the rising sea level. We're getting more of these coastal flooding events. You combine high tide with heavy rain, especially around Charleston, and you get a lot of flooding, sometimes quite severe, where it floods cars, closes roads, impacts buildings. It's a mess. It impacts buildings and businesses, all of that.
Right.
You had mentioned earlier on in the segment here that a lot of homes are built to withstand flooding, and they're built maybe higher up. That's how you raise a home, to kind of get away from the water. That doesn't help you with wind, but that helps you with water. So others are either raised on stilts, if you will, like pilings or something, and others are just raised by mounding up the dirt underneath the home and physically raising it that way. Either way, that'll protect you from some of the more nuisance, maybe less severe type flooding events. But as things get worse, rainfall events get worse, with more rainfall, tides get higher, that's going to be a bigger and bigger issue. We don't really have flash flooding. We have these low-lying flooding that is more damaging to property, in my opinion.
And I know that a lot of local officials are trying to shore things up, and they're trying to change the topography, if you will, in order to accommodate the rising sea levels, flooding, et cetera, but it'll be a long time before everyone is completely out of the woods on that. Ron Morales, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
We're back after this.